Hi everyone, I'm very excited because today I can see these amazing speakers for the second time, and all of them are so awesome, and I can't wait to start. Our purpose for this summit is helping you go to uh, PTSD much easier, and the theme for today is recovery from grief and combat PTSD. We talk about EFT, and we also talk about how we can recover from violence. So welcome to this show, PTSD Self-Healing Summit. Everybody go and introduce themselves, and hopefully we can have a very great time together. So we start with Erin Chandler. That's the second time I have her, and I love the first interview with her. She is my dear friend, and I want her to introduce herself.
Thank you, Pantia. I love you too. I'm so happy to be back and doing this with you. So my name is Erin Chandler. I am an intuitive guide and a psychic medium, a healer, a teacher, and a two-time author. And I teach others how to tap into their intuitive guidance and their own intuitive compass. And I teach them how to connect with their loved ones on the other side and grieve with them instead of for them.
Perfect. So we have Dr. Liz, because let's just introduce her. That's the second time again I have her here. The first time we had author promotion show together, she had very great book to read, and I really wish her to talk about herself, introduce herself for us. Hi, Liz.
Is that me?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I understood that. So yeah, hi everybody. I'm Dr. Liz, and I am the medical director in.
Oh, we lost her. We're gonna get back to her later. So let's go with Roseline. Hi, Roseline. That's the second time with her as well. She's a PTSD self-recovery and self-recovery coach, and she actually is a combat survivor. Let's just introduce her to you. All right, Roseline.
Hello, I'm Roseline Salazar. I am a retired Air Force military officer. I deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. In my enlisted days, I deployed to Saudi Arabia. I have combat PTSD and also military sexual trauma, and I am a mental health coach, helping others realize and learn that there is life after the military as well as their trauma.
The point is that lots of people think that PTSD just come from the combat PTSD, right? But it's not the case. But actually, because this is a very common thing happening to so many people, so I'm really excited to have you here, and we're gonna dig into it. So later we have Nancy Nace. Yeah, she's lovely. I always had lots of fun with her. She's amazing. Lots of nice live show. So tell me about yourself, Nancy.
I am Nancy Nance, and I'm a recovery coach. So I help people recover from the past trauma, stress, and drama of life in all the variations that it is. I'm blessed to be able to have an amazing compassion. It's from a place of my own personal healing and an understanding that we all have room to heal. The more that we heal from the destructive emotions, the more room we have for the constructive, wonderful emotions that we're all here to experience.
Beautiful. So Mariceli, that's the first time I have her, but I'm 100% sure she has lots of great news for us. Recently, I've seen her book, right? You just had your book. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And please tell me about yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Maricelis Ramos. I'm a domestic violence survivor. After 15 years, I decided to get the strength around my book. I'm an author, certified life coach, and entrepreneur. So what I do, I help women reconnect themselves after like a cycle of abuse. Sometimes after we leave that abusive relationship, we don't know where to start. So I just help them out reconnect with themselves.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's Richard. Richard Morden. That's the second time. I really, really enjoyed her first interview, but EFT, that's the very common technique for PTSD recovery, and I'm really happy to have him here.
Thank you. I'm Richard Morton. I'm a certified EFT practitioner and emotional success coach. So I take my own journey of loss and grief in my own life, parents, siblings, lost a spouse. So I've had the sudden loss, I've had long-term death. So again, trauma isn't always obvious as in PTSD. It can happen over a long period of time, very subtly in an abusive relationship, in a sense of watching someone in a long-term. I watched my mother 12-year journey of before she passed, sat by her bedside for 9 months. You know, my wife died of a brain aneurysm. So I've seen people go, and I say we can work through all that, and our choice to have love in our life can be greater than our fear of losing it. And I can say it because I walk my talk when it comes to that. So we have our journey, but we can have tremendous outcomes and lessons from those events.
Beautiful. So let's start with our theme. Our theme is about grief recovery, because I see 3 of you actually have passed this process, and I know it's so difficult because I've been there too. I lost my aunt, and I love her. She was like a mother to me, and it was so difficult, very life-changing. Before that, let's Dr. Liz is back. Let's just okay, Dr. Liz, can you introduce yourself, and then we go through the rest? Can you hear me? Liz, can you hear me? No, looks like she doesn't. All right, then. Can you start, Erin, with your story? First, I know grief is so difficult. Here we have few things to talk about. First of all, we're going to talk about what happened when you lose your loved ones. As I lost my aunt, as I said, it was a very difficult situation for me, and it took me some time. Still, after 20 years, still I'm thinking about it, and still I have dreams, and still I get memories, and I know it's not easy. Can you, Erin, can you tell me what happened to you and how did you recover from it?
Muted. There we are. I was going to say, I think I'm muted. Absolutely. So my journey actually started with the sudden death of my youngest daughter, and that was back in 2010. Her name is Ava. It really is a circumstance of my greatest loss actually turned into my greatest purpose and some of the greatest gifts and some of the greatest healing. So my journey, to make a long story short, because we all know grief is a long story and it takes a lot of time, I spent a period of 7 years not being able to grieve. I would go see different therapists and things like that, which actually were not of a benefit to me. I lost a lot of relationships. I was unable to work. My health declined to the point where I could barely get out of bed. I could not parent my children. My intimate relationships all fell apart. We had no money. We had to lose our house. And we got to the point where nobody could help me or tell me what was wrong. Nobody could provide a safe place to grieve. Nobody could figure out what was wrong with my health. All these, it was like there was no answers for anything, and everything just kept dropping off and dropping off, to the point where I just couldn't do it anymore. I think we can only handle so much suffering and so much loss without an outlet or a safe place before it really becomes soul crushing. So I made the decision that I couldn't do it anymore. And I went out into the middle of the forest one morning, and I was by myself, and I went into the forest and I looked up and I said, God, I give up. And I decided to make a plan to end my life. So in that moment, I actually felt better, surrendered. I surrendered to the fact that I couldn't do it anymore. Like that, I was of no benefit to anyone, and I couldn't function because the internal pain was so intense that was manifesting externally. So when I made that decision, a few days later, I got a call from an extended family member who is a medium, who nobody knew was a medium. And she said, your daughter has been coming to me crying, and she's saying that you gave up. So the exact words that I went into the middle of the forest where no one knows I did this. None of my family knew what was going on. And she said these words, and that whole process of suddenly becoming aware that we don't die, because if we do, there's no way that you would have been able to know that I was in a forest saying I give up. And to have, the death of my daughter, which crushed me, like it annihilated my identity, my world, to have that be the thing that gives me hope to keep going is very profound. And it makes you question, do we die? How is that possible? Where does that come from? So that alone, I obviously, friends, decided that I was not going to end my life in that moment because I had hope. She told me she was going to help me. And by golly, my daughter has helped me tremendously. So through the process, I learned how to connect with her and get a response so I can see her, feel her. She leads me places. She brings me people that I work with. She connects me with people in the grocery store when their deceased loved ones want to speak to them. It's been a wild journey. And the thing that I've discovered is it is highly logical, the way that we actually can connect with our deceased loved ones. And at the end of the day, I don't know about you guys, but it's one thing to do, all of our processes. So I did EMDR, I did talk therapy, I did all kinds of structured, logical, medical, all of these things that we have in society to help us move through trauma, to take that energy and move out of it, to make purpose out of pain. But I will tell you, there is absolutely nothing that compares to having a full-on conversation with the person that you think is gone. That changed everything. I would never be able to help people the way that I do. I would never be at the point that I'm at without that piece. And the thing is we all have that piece. Everybody can connect. Everybody has intuitive guidance. Everybody can hear their deceased loved ones. The greatest healing happens when you realize that you are indefinitely connected to them. It has been one heck of a journey, my friends. It's been magical. It's been painful. It's been joyful. It has been profound beyond anything I could ever have imagined.
Wow, that was beautiful, Erin. Thank you. We're going to get back to you about the methods you use, and we're going to continue our discussion. I don't want to lose the rest of discussion because Nancy had the same experience. So I'm going to go to Nancy because she also lost her daughter, and it's so hard. I just want to know, how long did it take you to realize that you can recover and you finally change your perception and start recovering?
Gosh, that is wow. It's not a day that you mark on your calendar. It's not like, okay, 322 days and I'm okay. it was uncovering and understanding feelings for me because I stopped feeling. I did not know how to articulate my feelings. I mean, there were a lot of blue words that I used to describe my feelings, you know, the ones that start with B and F and all of those. Most of them have 4 letters, right? But I also kept on telling everybody I was fine. I'm fine. I'm really good. How are you? So I used so many coping mechanisms, the same mechanisms that I'd used before Emily's passing, when I'd gone through the trauma of being in a traumatic marriage, the drama of being in a traumatic life. When I went through and I wrote down my trauma ladder, so the ladder of all of the traumas that I've been through, I just like, this sucks, right? Like, why would anybody sign up for this kind of a life? And I was exponentially angry. The hatred that was seething through my soul was so deep and so dark that all I did was imagine the death of the driver of the boat. And I filled journal after journal. And then as my marriage crumbled, same thing. My granddaughter passed away within months. It was just like event after event after event. And I didn't know how to feel anything that was good. So going through, like Erin said, I went through one healing. I became a certified yoga teacher. Okay, well, because I became bendy. I knew all about standing in certain poses, and I was really good at posing. I was good. I was okay. And I wasn't. And it was through finding healer after healer after healer that I was able to begin to believe that happiness was, maybe possible. That I started to go through layer after layer of hidden traumas, pent up trauma, so that I could begin feeling something that was better than the overwhelming hatred I had for life. It was just palpable. And you'd go home after being at an event and, hi, my name is Nancy and blah, 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 blah. And then I was alone and I hated waking up in the morning. And it was like, ugh, great, another day. And I went through every single addiction that was possible, right? Like, it was like, oh my God, everything, retail therapy, right? Like, let's rack up those credit cards because, man, Amazon feels great.
Distraction.
And then that doesn't work.
You use the distraction.
Yeah. Anything I could to distract myself, anything. But I'd always wake up with that same dreadful feeling of being alive. And I promised my daughter that I would find a way to live again. And I just kept on trying and trying until I found certain things that worked. And it was by understanding the power of emotions and how it works. Because you can't just suddenly become happy. Like, oh no, just be optimistic, right?
Exactly.
It's like, oh my God, I'm optimistic. I never want to see you again, right? And I'm like, oh my God, who is that angry person in the room? Like, she was always there. There was this seething anger. And I didn't want to be that. I wanted to be happy, but I didn't know how at all.
Yeah, I know it takes time. You've done so much thing. I think you did Reiki, yoga. A lot of things can help you to go through this. And finally, you find your way, you find your purpose. And I know it's not easy.
No.
So let's go to Richard. I know Richard had the same experience. He lost his wife. And I just want to know what he did to recover from the loss.
Okay, there I am. Sorry. Thanks. That was the opening of a lot of pain in my life that I didn't even recognize. So I had previously, my mother had a long journey from a child to 21 with that there. with cancer, sat by her bedside, but I was already numb from a child. My father had sort of traumatized us with his abusive behavior, the violent rage. I mean, I was young, I was 6, and my siblings have all self-destructed. 2 of the oldest were alcoholics. My oldest brother committed suicide. I'm the last guy he called. I'm the guy that got called to identify his body. You know, that was trauma, and I didn't even know it because I had no response to it. That was 1988. 2013, my wife was a nurse going to a conference. I kissed her goodbye. I got a call later. She had gone unconscious in a car on her way to a conference right outside the London hospital with 2 other nurses. So I had to gather up my children. We went down, and within, you walk in, they're on ventilators, and they told us there's no 90% brain dead. And I knew in that second she was coming off life support. So I turned to my kids and her parents, and I said, we need to let her go. It was not even an awkward decision at that point, and I'd seen suffering in that. So it was a blessing in disguise that she did not suffer. Our children did not see her suffer. You know, so at that point, and it was just before my daughter's graduation in high school, you know, so little things that happened like that. But we had a good family unit. So there was not I, there was we as part of this family going together. So, and I was in grief, but I'm not recognizing that the accumulation of trauma I had, because no one knew. I didn't know. I was in depression for years. I functioned fine in a work world. I went to the gym and I watched my siblings self-destruct, so I did not do their behavior. They did drugs and alcohol, and I somehow had the sense that I needed to stay true to my body, so I went to the gym. But I had rage. Oh boy, did I destroy a lot of things. The gym took out a lot of rage to me, and I was working on a farm too, so I was able to use my body and exhaust myself. I could work 12 hours a day and go to the gym and work out for 2 hours. There was that much energy in my system. So and again, you don't know you're functioning. People say you're polite, you're doing things. So my energy, I had an outlet. So after my wife passed, and then I knew I wanted to be self-care because I wanted to be present for my children. And I found EFT. So I went to a course. She died in June. I went to a course in October, a 3-day course. And I had 2 massive traumas come out of my body. One with my father. Again, I had no idea it was there. My brother's suicide, and it was like a volcano. I was sweating. I was almost throwing up. I had so much energy, like someone pouring hot lava out of your body. So, and I thought, this is huge for me, but I said, there's got to be more. So we were asked to connect with the other people to do self-care. That didn't work. Nobody wanted to. I took the course again in the spring with Nancy Forrester's and master trainer. And then I went on her 10-month course for Harness Your Power. She's also a psychotherapist, now retired. And we get into self-care and doing your own work. And I fell in love with the process because, man, there was a lot of junk there, like a lot of junk. But it was such a blessing to work with colleagues and all these pieces. And it's ongoing to see these fall into place. And it allowed me to be present with my children. And that's where I was grateful. Most people contract. I allowed myself to really be present, and my children moved on very well in their life. And I take my credit for my part, but we had good family that supported them. So doing their thing. And a year later, when my daughter finished university, or when she finished university 3 years later, she wanted to travel. And I was all for it because I said, are you running away? And she said, no. I said, would you go if your mom was alive? She said, no. Would you go if your grandma was alive? She said, no. They'd both passed away. I said, see you later. Have a good life. So she's traveled and lived and done good things with her life. So, and I've continued on my personal journey. You know, so that, I found good people to connect with. You know, it's so slowly releasing this. I have a new relationship, which I wrote out on paper, 2014, 2016. I met my dream girl. So we're together. She's a medium as well. So we have great relationships as she talks to them and me. And I don't know who she's talking to, but there's lots of chatter going on here in this household. So, but I did the work in a sense, and that's all this really is. It's just work. And when you find good people to connect with, you hold dearly to them, and you create your life. And I learned to create your life by the way you think. So I had to improve, tune my thoughts in. How do I think? What do I want to create? So that's been ongoing.
Beautiful.
But I'm loving this.
You know, Richard, when I talked to him last time, he said the best thing I've done was self-care. That's the same with Nancy and Erin, who went to the same process. That's me as well, because I've been there. And by the time you realize you have a family to take care of, you have other kids, you have family members, and if you lose yourself and you don't feel strong about yourself? How can you help others? How can you have your family, right? So I think you done the great thing to just having your family together, because even if you lose somebody, I know this is not going to go away. It's going to stay with you forever. But there are lots of hope, and you feel blessed because you still have loved ones. You still have other family member to cherish and be with them. So I know Liz is here again. Liz, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Liz?
Can't hear very well.
Okay, that's fine. But can you talk about yourself first? Because I know you've been there. You also lost your husband during the suicide, and I really wish to have you inside this summit. First, introduce yourself, and then tell me how did you recover from the grief.
Are you speaking to me, Pantea? I'm not sure if you're speaking to me because it's unclear.
Okay, we lost her again. So we may just continue to have her back. All right, let's go to that other terms, like Linda Hayes. She is my dear friend, and yeah, you are on mute right now. She actually helped parents to go through loss, and through the loss, and especially in early pregnancy, if you lose your baby or you have miscarriages, it's so difficult. I've been there again because I've lost my baby 2 times, so I know it's not really easy to cope with this. So Linda, can you introduce yourself, what you're doing, and tell me how you can recover from this loss?
Yes. Hi, can you hear me? Yes. I suppose as a clinical psychologist, and a focus on perinatal came initially from my midwifery work. So I was even traumatized myself through the midwifery work that I was doing, because I worked in a large teaching hospital, and it was very medicalized. So it was hard to practice the way I wanted to practice. Occasionally that was great. But I used to see a lot of women going through trauma after the birth. And it wasn't until I was doing some home visiting in my private work later that I realized there's a lot of women still talking about their births and saying that they're having dreams and nightmares and even flashbacks to a particular voice of a midwife or an obstetrician that they would never forget. And so I realized, these women are quite traumatized, even, suffering from PTSD. And so I focused my work on this area, and having these women coming in antenatally and postnatally was surprising how women could focus, wherever their focus went was what they were feeling or experiencing. So it wasn't about the event, it was their take on it and their perception of what happened. So that's where I started working in helping mothers and dads manage the loss that they've had, or even an unexpected emergency cesarean section, or even if it's planned, but things didn't go expected in that situation either. So I realized that the talk therapy was very valuable for them to go through the emotion and just be present in their body with the emotion, because they're so busy going through the actual event when people ask them how they are. And then not actually having a chance to experience or talk about the emotion and how they felt at the time or how they're feeling now. So that was very valuable. I felt that women taking some time to go through that process of talking about their experience, sitting with the emotion and acknowledging the pain and the difficulty, but also acknowledging that they have power and strength, that they are making change just by moving slowly and looking after themselves. And I suppose meditation was something that was very valuable and worked quite nicely for them as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Lina. We're going to get back to you again. I'm not sure if Liz can hear us.
Well, I can hear
Finally.
sort of. I mean, I think if you just spoke to me, I can hear, but I'm not sure if you guys can hear me because it's very, sounds underwater. Everybody sounds underwater to me. If you can hear me, I can share.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Did you want me to comment upon the grief or of the loss? Because I wasn't sure what the last person was just speaking about.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So yeah. So the most traumatic experience that I had in my life was at the age of 42, and I was married for 5.5 years since we met and dated, and married 3.5 years, and we had a child that was 2 years and 10 months old at that time. And of course, there's, a build up to it. But my husband at the time, he was 27. I was 15 years older than him. And we were actually on our way to Disney World, take our son to Disney World for the last time before he turned 3. And I was driving down from the town up north where I was working and picked up my son from our place up there, and I was going down to meet my husband.
That's so unfortunate today. I really wish to have her here, but we have to wait again. So let's go. Let's see if you can hear. Can you continue? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry about that. And anyway, I went into the house to get him and bring him out to the car because I had done all the packing with the food and everything. And it was a Friday night, and I went in there, and it was what I understood later on as the definition of dead silence. And it was just very unusually silent. I saw the light on in the garage and yelled out, hey, are you ready? What are you doing? As I was walking and talking, are you getting the clothes down from the attic? Because it was October. This was now 16 years ago, but it's, just like a visual image, very clear. And I rounded the corner there, and he was hanging from the rafters. And so I've heard from a lot of people about suicides, and it's one thing of a loved one doing that and you not being there and finding them, but it's a whole nother level if you actually found them. And that I think really is where the stress, the post-traumatic stress, really came from. I got him down. He was still warm. I thought he was gonna get the air knocked into him. Anyway, and none of that worked. We gave him CPR, me and the neighbors. Obviously, got the neighbors involved. It was Friday night. Everybody was outside in Florida, getting ready for the evening. Anyway, that was the beginning of a whole new life for me. And at that age, at 43, and having almost a 3-year-old at the time, I felt like my life was over. And it was. Life as I knew it was over. And it was just... it was the worst time in the world for me, the worst time in my life. When I spoke to my spiritual advisor, which is part of the healing process, and, I want to say that what I've done about post-traumatic stress or stress in general is everything I can possibly think of. And that is my most important message, is to anybody out there that is feeling hopeless or is suffering from a mental illness, that's diagnosed or not. Don't ever give up on everything that you try, because I literally tried everything and I used everything. And I attribute my healing from these types of traumas. And I have many unfortunately, other types of traumas in my life too, but everything. So I spoke to a spiritual advisor and said, what's going on? How can I get a new life when my life's gone and I don't have a new life to go to? This is a horrible place to be in. And it was, he called it this dark in between place, and just the acknowledgement, I think, from him was important to me as well, knowing that he knew and understood, and he explained it to me. Your life as you knew it is gone, but you don't have a new life yet. So over the next 10 years, I did all the things that I had been doing for the years previous. I did hear some of the previous speakers mention things about addiction, I think is what I heard. And I've come through that as well. So all the things that I did in the past, I did. And they all helped, but I kept doing more things. So I'll just share with you the last 5 things that I did that were new, that helped me a lot. One of them was acupuncture. I hadn't tried that before. I had been doing chiropractic and massage therapy, but I tried acupuncture. I tried color therapy. And when I say I tried, I mean I did, and it worked. And I still do some of these things today. Color therapy is important. I had never really tried aromatherapy, and a lot of people poo-poo these types of things, but I tried aromatherapy and it worked. It helped. I tried equine therapy, and I know a lot of veterans use equine therapy. And that's what the care provider who was administering the equine therapy told me. She had veterans there that were leaving as I was coming in. So it was extremely important and helpful to me. But finally, the last thing that I tried, and it's not like it was more important, I don't think, than the others, but it just got me over the hump. And this was 10 years after that incident. I actually tried some feng shui, and the other part of my message is, don't ever scoff at something that somebody else is suggesting to you, because I would have never thought that taking a mirror out of my bedroom would have completely lifted 10 years of grief that I was holding on my shoulders, but it did. And the science around that, if you will, is that the mirror reflects back to you all the sadness that it had gotten. So at night, like if I was crying during the day, at night when I'm sleeping right across the bed from my mirror, that sadness is coming back on me. And I thought, well, heck, I'm going to try that. And as soon as I took that mirror out of the bedroom, the next morning was like, bing. And that is really when I began to live my life again. And I began to love my life again. So I'm not saying that feng shui is more powerful than anything else. It just, they say about people, and this is the last part I want to say, they say about people that complete suicide. This is, they say that they try 100 different things. There's a list, and it's not like they go down this list, but they're just trying different things. And eventually they just take the act that ends their life. And it's not a choice and it's not a decision. So I feel like in my healing, that's what I did. And I kind of feel like that's poetic for me because, suicidal ideation is a big part of my story too. And that's probably why I ended up finding Ben, my late husband. But I tried 50 different things, and I did write them down for my healing strategies to share with others. But, for me, it wasn't that it was just the feng shui. It was just that last thing that I tried, and it ended up culminating everything into this finally worked for me. So thank you guys for letting me share.
Thank you so much. That was so interesting. I know Nancy had the same experience with aromatherapy. She already talked about it, right? And I saw her laughing and yeah, smiling. Yeah, she had it. Yes, Nancy, can you talk
Yeah.
about this for
Well,
us?
and the oh gosh, aromatherapy. I love the smells and scents. And I was laughing because I'm like, Atlas cedarwood, if you can find that and use that on your mirror, clean your mirrors with Atlas cedarwood. Like it's amazing. It's God created this stuff for us to use. We just need to find someone that can help us navigate the path. And when you do struggle with any form of addiction, and everybody has struggled with a form of addiction, you just need to find something that is better. We're just striving to find pleasure in our life, whether that's from a bag of Twizzlers or something that's just a little bit stronger, like a
Yeah,
line of cocaine, whatever
beautiful.
it is that you're using. We're all trying to numb the pain.
Yeah,
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
beautiful. So we are still, because now the theme of grief is done, we're gonna go through Roseline and Mariceli. We have a few second break and we come back again. Please subscribe to Pontoil Calhoun Transition channel and order my book Rules of Change for the Better. Tune up your mood and transform your life to reach your biggest dreams. All right, we are back. Let's go to another theme. But I know still we can use other advice from Erin, Nancy, Rosaline, Richard, and Linda, because most of us have almost the same situation. So there are lots of similarities in PTSD and emotional trauma. Rosalind, tell me about combat PTSD and what did you do with the violence? I know Mariceli had the same feeling. How did you recover from it and what did you do?
Combat PTSD. Well, my experience, I went on convoys, supply runs. We got incoming attacks, rocket attacks. One flew like 10 feet over my head. We lost people. One day I remember, this one clear day, we were ambushed. We were ambushed and stuck for 6 hours. Another time was when we got incoming rocket. That's when I saw it like 10 feet over my head. And then the worst part of it all is my boss. He's an army boss. He liked me. I didn't like him back. So he used his rank to intimidate me. And he got everyone on the camp to not talk to me. He would, whenever I didn't do what he wanted me to do, he beat me. So on top of the rocket attacks, the convoy ambush, I got my boss bullying me. And every day we didn't know if we were going to make it home. I called my mom every day. She was my biggest supporter, my angel. And unfortunately, she passed 2 years ago. What I did, well, one night I just had it because no one would talk to me. And I didn't know if I was going to see the next day. So I actually attempted suicide. I took down my bottle of Ambien CR, hoping that I would not wake up. But we got attacked that night and I was not accounted for. They carried me out and I still went on runs. I still had to get on the MRAP and drive. And then the worst thing about that deployment to Afghanistan was when we lost the first sergeant and I witnessed his head getting blown up by a rocket propelled grenade. And that was the worst. And I got blamed for it. Everyone listened to my boss. But what I did while there after attempted suicide was I had a roommate. She prayed with me and I didn't want to pray with her because I was mad at God. But she said that that's who I have to turn to right now, because we can't even trust our own. They turned against me, and even there's this one time they left me in the bunker too. But I prayed, and then she taught me meditation. Meditate for 30 minutes a day. She taught me breathing techniques, and she told me to just pray before we go on a supply run or a convoy, and look forward to seeing my family when I get back. And it wasn't easy at the time, but it worked. And praying, meditating, breathing exercises is what got me through. And having that picture of my family to go home to, I told myself, I don't know why I attempted suicide. And I said I had 6 months left, and I'm going to pull through this. And I did. Unfortunately, when I launched a complaint about being bullied by your leadership, because I went to leadership for everything. They just told me it was my fault. It was my fault. I allowed it to happen, but I'm here crying out, and they didn't listen to me. But I lost when I did the complaint. They launched an investigation. So there was no justice. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with these people, the law? And I ended up getting medically retired. So another way that I felt defeated is they let him stay in, and I got medically retired for not being mentally fit. But at the end, I went through therapy. It took me 10 years before I could even do anything well, fit in. But I had 2 kids. I had to set the example. I told myself that they depend on me. Their lives depend on me. I have to raise them, and I want to set an example. So I did. I kept going to therapy, doing my breathing exercises, meditation, and my justice. Because I had to make peace with my own self. Because the law is just not gonna have my back anymore. So my main outlet was I wrote a book about everything that happened, almost everything that happened, and how I coped and where I'm at today. And so I'm trying to help those without a voice, females, males, who was done wrong, like myself, that there is life after the military. There is justice. But first they have to just accept that we have to make peace within ourselves. And then like I said, my book, I wrote a book. I got it published. It's I made it sound like, make a smooth transition after the military, create yourself a wonderful life. But it was really telling my story, because that was a nice way of getting it out legally, and then what I did and where I'm at today.
Beautiful. Journaling is one of the best remedy for all of us. That's what I did for my book. Erin did the same thing. I'm not sure about any of you who did the journaling. Let's see, Mary Sally also has a book. Nancy has a book. Richard is going to have a book soon. And also Dr. Liz has a book too. I love her book. And Linda, do you have a book?
Unmute.
Do you have a book, Linda?
Yes, it's on its way.
Okay, great. Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And Linda and Liz also. Liz has a book about her own story. So you see, journaling is really powerful thing to help you go through this. And it's not only journaling. Everybody can find her own remedy to conquer this fear of anxiety, depression, and all of things go through the PTSD. So we have Mary Sally here. She actually had experience in violence, right? Am I right? Yes, and probably bad relationship. And I know a lot of you has the same experience. And it's good to take care of ourselves. By the time we realize that we are in that situation, still we have time to recover and to find some solution. Okay, tell me about it.
Well, it started at the age of 15 with someone who was 7 years older than me. Well, I actually experienced domestic violence because my mother was abused. So I kind of grew up thinking it was normal. So at the age of 15, when I met this person who at that time was married with a child, he kind of came into my life. So I met him, we became boyfriend and girlfriends. And sometimes in our culture, age kind of doesn't matter. So even though if I was just a teenager, he was an adult, it was in no trouble. So at first he was okay, of course, lovely, doubly, all pretty and cute. And then he came controlling. You can't hang with your friends. You can't wear this. You can't talk like. It just took 6 months into the relationship when he started putting his hands on me. And not just tapping, pushing, it was punching, grabbing my neck, pulling my hair. There were times when my hair was in his hand. And there was so many years went by. I just kind of got addicted to it. I'm thinking this is just normal. You know, I'm young. I had no guidance. The relationship with my mother wasn't strong enough for me to come to her and say, hey, mom, he's abusing me. At the age of 18, I moved on my own. And of course, I moved in with him. I'm thinking it's going to change. It didn't. It escalated. Now it's just me and him. He kept dragging me on the floor. I used to sleep with a knife under my bed because he used to tell me, if you fall asleep and I catch you asleep, it's going to be your last night. So being in an abusive relationship, it's like walking in a cracked ice, waiting to fully crack. Am I going to make it today? Is today going to be my last day? And there were times where you're suicidal, where you don't want to live anymore. And yes, you do love your children, but it's like, I cannot continue to live like this. I cannot continue to live. If I wake up today, am I going to go to sleep tonight? Am I going to wake up tomorrow? So finally, I decided to leave, right? Because at that time, I had the strength to call the police. He left. I moved out of New Hampshire. But then again, I didn't heal. I found someone who was worse. He used to bite me.
Same pattern.
Same pattern. He used to bite me. He used to drag me. And not only he hurt me, but he abused my daughter. So he assaulted my daughter sexually. So at that time, it was like a big rock that fell on top of me. I blame myself. I didn't handle things properly. So many things fell apart. I fell into alcohol. I moved. I'm thinking, okay, I'm ready to heal. I wasn't. I was just doing things, suicidal, alcohol, going crazy. My children, my home was falling apart. I wasn't healed. I couldn't help my children. I was an empty cup. So then again, I moved on. I finally found someone who I thought it was good. I ended up marrying that person. But then emotionally abusing, right? He started to control me. He started to doing things, the alcohol. But then at this time, I wasn't allowing it. It was like reactive abuse. Now I wanted to put my hands on him because he was, emotionally abusing me. But then again, that's when I started to say, okay, do you want to continue? Do you want to live so many years to live like this? I started going to church. I started praying to God like I never prayed before. Please, God, can you hear me? Do you see me crying? Do you really want me to live like this? Is this how I'm going to live for the rest of my life? I finally decided to separate. I went to therapy. I started praying. I apologized to my children. So I had to build a relationship all over again. I had to get to know my children. I had to get to know myself. I had to love myself because I didn't know how to become a mom because I didn't have a mom. So how do I love someone when you was in love as a child? So it was like a baby. When a baby starts walking step by step, I had to do it.
You cannot just do it right away. Yeah.
So, I'm not perfect. I started expressive writing. I wrote my memoir. And going back to some things that I went through, it was hard writing my book. It really was. It was really emotional. And at that time, I lost a family member who was a brother to me. So I was grieving at the same time, writing my book in a different hand. So it was really hard. But all those emotions, I put into my book. A lot of family members wasn't happy about the book because I exposed certain things that my mother did to me growing up. So I really didn't get that support. But you know what? When a person inboxes me, hey, I wrote your book, it inspired me, that makes me feel like, wow, it was worth me writing my book.
Really, worth it.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
amazing. All it takes for you to help one person,
Mhm.
just one person. When I speak on my podcast and that person say thank you because I needed to hear them words, it's amazing. It's definitely amazing. And as hard as it is to heal, it's, I learned so much to help others, the voiceless, the hopeless. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. And if I did it, you can too.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. That was so powerful. I
Thank you.
just want to ask you if any of you have the same situation of violence or bad relationship, and how did you do and how did you recover from it? Did you have any example? Yeah, go ahead.
I can share a little bit on that. I found it very interesting as I was listening to Marceli sharing that my actual first experience with domestic violence was really in my primary family of origin. And watching my parents and their relationship was very physically violent and verbally abusive. And so that was just normal every day for me. And they did not spare the rod, so to speak. I guess they call it a corporal punishment. We were hit as kids. My mother would just backhand you, if she didn't like what you said. I heard you talking about pulling the hair. I think my mother did that to me. That was like regular situation. She would get into trying to put her hands on me, and I would put my hands up to defend myself and grab her, wrists, and then she would get away and grab my hair. I mean, I remember feeling that moment when she grabbed my hair that time when I was in my teens. I remember feeling guilty about even pulling her hair back, but it was the only thing I could think of to get her to let go of my hair. And I actually felt guilty about that. She didn't have any guilt pulling my hair. But anyway, of course, with that background, I found myself, and it's one of the things I write about in my book, is the classic, like, how did I end up here? I guess it was maybe, I was in my mid-30s, so whatever, 20 years later. And I swore to myself when I was 15, I would never be like that. And I used my parents as negative role models, but I ended up being like that. Not that I was the one that was the perpetrator, which I think I thank God for as well. I do thank God for that. I did not perpetrate it. And it's the only, entity that I owe that to, I think, that I can thank for that. Because otherwise I should have been a perpetrator for sure. But I was in a relationship with a man, and I found myself on the ground with the choke, the hands around the neck. His hands were around my neck, pinned down, and his fist was like this. And just this horrible feeling came over me.
Wow, we lost her again. That was interesting. I was going to continue with her. But I know it's so difficult, this kind of relationship. Are you back? Yeah, go ahead.
I think if I can get back to there.
You are here.
If I may finish. So I think I had like 6 years clean, and I remember saying to myself, I have 6 years clean and sober. How did I get here? Like, you should be well enough by now. So it just shows you the power of, what we learn, the children learn what they live type thing, and what I sought out. But after that, and my first husband also slapped me one time, and And I said, don't ever do that again. But so this was like the second really domestic violence relationship that I was in. But after that, that was it for me. I never got involved in any of that again. But where it started for me, and this is where I started drawing the line, and maybe this will be important for somebody out there listening and tuning in. I obviously went to the internet. I found out about or pamphlets or whatever at the time. I found out about what constitutes abuse. And the first thing that it says, where it starts, is the name calling. And my parents were very good at name calling. And I never thought that name calling was abusive, verbally abusive. But once I started drawing the line at name calling, and as soon as I would be in a relationship with somebody that would start to call me a name, doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter what the reason is. If you're calling me a name, I said that's a line for me. It's a deal breaker. I don't do name calling, and I don't participate in relationships where there's name calling. And if I did give them a second chance, that was it. If they did say it again, that's it. Goodbye. There's no questions asked. And that has helped me, stay out of those unhealthy relationships and, remain in more healthy relationships. So.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing these examples for us. What I just realized, even for the relationship, there are lots of things around it, because we as human first, we think we are in love. And that's why we think that that's okay. We're going to go through this because we have a family. We have to take care of our family or children. And that the same pattern is going to be repeated again and again. By the time we don't process what is happening to us, that's going to repeat again and again. So I just want to know, right now we all almost finish, but I just want to know from each of you very quick, that what was your exact solution to recover from PTSD, like in bold bullet point. So first, start with Erin.
Sure, absolutely. Before I do that, though, I just have to say what a privilege it is to be here with all of you and watch you literally take circumstances that are horrific and not only rise up, but go back to help other people rise up. Like literally, I've sat here this whole time listening to all of you and feeling so proud of all of you. Like, that's amazing. And it's a privilege to be here with all of you. And I really, really, really wanted to tell you that so that you all knew that. So for me, it literally is connecting with spirit. It literally is having a full-on conversation with the deceased. It literally is going back. So when we talk about mediumship or intuitive guidance, we think of airy-fairy, or is that true? Or what, there's all this blasé kind of stuff about it. But the fact is, if you had childhood trauma, if you sexual abuse, any kind of trauma, any kind of relationship that hurt you, the dead talk about the living. Mediumship is about the living. They talk about all the experiences that you have had that have hurt you, that are wounds that are buried deep, to heal. So there's all kinds of different tools that I think everybody can use. There's so many: art therapy, talk therapy. You can use all of them. Use anything that helps you. But please, if you could just tap into this one thing, it is profoundly healing to know that the universe saw every stinking little bit of horror that you've been through, and they're going to lift you right back up and walk through it with you. It's profoundly healing. And for me, that was absolutely, hands down, the only reason why I can get up and help other people and feel joy.
Thank you so much, Erin. Thank you. Debbie, we didn't have you there. Have you been there? I didn't see you.
No, I was not able to get on until just now, so I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah, I thought I missed you. So let's go to Debbie. We were closing the talk, but first introduce yourself and just tell us how we can relaunch our life.
So what I do is I help people rewire stories. I'm an energy healer, and one of the big things that I do is really help people work with their own energy to heal trauma. And usually what I do, and I highly recommend people do, is breathing is a big part of where we start. And we look to get out of any trauma response that anyone might be in at the time. And then from that point, I know my story is kind of a long one, but I had a long history of childhood trauma myself, and I grew up in a violent home. And there were a lot of things that I was very wired for fight or flight response my whole life. And it really did carry around into everything that I did. My husband and I divorced, but we were able to reconcile a couple years later. So there's a lot of ways that this follows us around. And I'm sure that several of your guests have touched on that. And when I work with people, typically what I highly recommend is we do the breathing to really pause that trauma response, but then we go in and we look at where the stories in the head are coming from, and then we look to rewrite them. So a lot of what I do is based on getting really deep into where everything stems from, and then taking ownership of your own story and making your story in your head come from you instead of the original source that it came from. So that's really just in a nutshell the work that I do with people.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Hang on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Finally, we could have you. I was waiting for you for the whole time.
Thank you. I'm
great.
so sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So let's go back to Linda. She was a bit quiet right now. So tell me about your own solution, Linda. What did you have trauma? How did you recover from it? You talk about it a little bit, but what are your solution in very quick time?
I know I haven't had significant traumas, but my last marriage was quite traumatic for me with the breakup. It was sudden, and there was a lot of silence from him for nearly 12 months. And once he left, he was straight into a relationship. And I put everything together and realized that he had been building this relationship for a long time and distancing himself from me. So I was complete shock. And I spoke to a psychiatrist friend who, I said to him, where do people go, health professionals, to get help with this? And he said, well, you're in shock and it's New Year's Eve. I think, well, it was a couple of days before New Year's Eve. I think you need to go somewhere safe, because at that point, I just wanted to drive into a pole. I thought I would just get smashed and drive into a pole because life wasn't worth living. And so I admitted myself into a unit, and I was very fortunate to have a nice quiet room. I spent a lot of time doing crafts and colouring in, which I absolutely love. Even dot to dot. All those things were very therapeutic for me. Meditation that I trained other people in and I'd been doing previously really centered me. And I did a lot of talk therapy, and I joined their yoga groups as well. So all of those activities I found on different elements of my brain were being used, and I was eating healthy and drinking water. And so that's something personally, and it took me a little while to get over that, but I found that that was significant, and it was something that I could share with my clients when they were traumatized by their experience, but they were also experiencing suicidal ideation, that, these places can help you. So that was one thing. And if I can say, the work that I do with clients now is changed a little bit. I still use all of those techniques. However, I'm now moving into a bit more of a spiritual side of it. And I am now one of the new pioneers about to train in prenatal bonding BA, which was put together by Rafe back in the 80s, 90s. And Gerhard Schroth, Dr. Gerhard Schroth, this psychiatrist in Germany, ran a group about 10 years ago, and he only had 10 participants. And now there's so many people trying to get in it, and he's just taken on 12 of us. So I'm very fortunate to have that because it's a preventative. So we can be with women in their pregnancy. We can tap them into their own past grievances and traumas. We do like a hypnotherapy regression with them. And we also connect them with their babies. And it's amazing. Babies are talking to their mothers. They're communicating. And when there's a positive side to it, and in this talk and connection, the babies respond very positively. And women, they've shown out of 8,000 women, they had less than 1% cesarean sections and less than 1% postnatal depression. And they had happy, bright babies, well-connected, and very well-connected families.
Thank you so much, Linda. Beautiful.
That's what I would hope for the world to have.
Thank you. So we go back to Richard. He was mute for a long time. I love EFT, and I know how it can help a lot of PTSD survivor. Can you just talk a little bit about that, and then we're gonna close off with three more. Yeah, go ahead.
When again, the EFT, we were required to do our own personal peace procedure when we took the course. And that was a big part of uncovering the layers of trauma as well. And, I guess for me, the resilience of the journey, I've always been a guy who just went up and went to work. And so this was just work to me that I really wanted to commit to. But I also, I had two, 18, 19-year-old children. I wanted to be there for them. So my desire was to be present for them so they could have an expansive life. So again, I used different modalities. I used some sound tones. All of it is pearls on the chain. Maybe one person gets you over the hump at the end, looks like the miracle, but the journey is the relationship you've created on those other people you've connected with, the magic there, and every piece of it adds to your journey and continuation where you can thrive. I've done thousands of hours of tapping on myself and with clients and my own, but I've been dedicated to my own work. I can't be there for you if I have something that's being triggered. So I was just enjoy being there and it's layers. There's always something else to work on, but it's fun because when you get to journal your journey in the sense of where I was and you go, oh my God, that was pretty sad. To where you are, you have to give yourself that praise that you have made some progress and you are worthwhile, and people do. You can accept someone else saying nice things about you. So it's a journey. We just plug into it so we can thrive.
Beautiful. Roseline, that's your turn. Quickly tell me about your highlight solutions, what you did, and then we go to Mary Sally.
I practice mindfulness. I learned that I have to live in the past. Not to live in the past, live in the present, and look into the future. So that's what I've done.
Mm-hmm. That was beautiful. Yeah, exactly. Living in the present. And that's what I did, because even that's the best distraction, isn't it? Because you just see that, okay, I'm not in the past, I'm not in the future. The thing is that this is the only thing I have present, and this is like a gift for me, right? Yeah, go ahead.
There's a little saying about that. If you have one foot in yesterday and one foot in tomorrow, you're pissing all over today.
Yeah.
But yeah, may I share real quick my sort of little quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sort of like a 3-part. I was thinking, number one, I can't, but we can. And so, the first thing is not being alone and walking through it with somebody else, or, whether it be a professional or trusted friend. And you do have to walk through it. That's number 2. You can't go around it. You can't go under it. You can't avoid it. you have to walk through it, even though the dark times, even through the pain, we have to walk through it. That cannot be avoided. And therefore, we do it with a friend, and that together gives us the hope. And there's a saying in the AA Big Book that I love so much. It says, what at first I thought was a flimsy reed was the loving and caring hand of God. And every time I think about that, it chokes me up, because, you know, you never know where that help is coming from, but God, and I apologize for using God if you don't have that.
Oh, she's gone again. Let me see if I can have her. Okay, go, Maricel, can you tell me about your solutions very quick? Or let me see if I have Dr. Liz. Okay,
well, what I
give
was
me.
going to say to finish is, if you are an atheist or whatever, you could replace God with hope. So what I thought was
Exactly.
the flimsy reed was the loving and caring hand of hope. And so anyway, I felt like those three are very important ingredients for me. If I had to just distill it down to something, that's what it would be for me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Liz. So, Maricel, are you here? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here. So the first thing that I did was accept the things that happened to me. Once I accept, I identify my triggers. Because one of the things that used to bother me, people behind my back, even if I'm just eating in my safe space, I was always hearing things behind me. Are they going to come get me? Are they going to come grab me from behind? So I had to tell myself, I'm in my safe place. Nothing is going to happen to me. So I do a lot of breathing. I walk each morning. So I train my mind into knowing that they're not going to hurt me anymore. So the more you tell yourself that nothing's going to happen, you're going to start to believe it. So every time I used to feel anxiety, like someone was going to come behind me, you got this. You in your safe place. A lot of breathing techniques. I do a lot of breathing techniques, a lot of music, a lot of reading, a lot of expressive writing. I have a journal and I have affirmation note on my mirror. Every morning, I read the affirmations. I am loved. I am worthy. So just me telling myself that, you start to believe it. So I always say to myself, I can't change the past, but I can build a new one. So I just go from there. Yeah.
Thank you. So who is left? Debbie, can you tell me about your solution? Roseline, you left, right? Then you're done. Okay. Debbie, can you talk about your solution very quickly?
Yeah. Usually what I do, not only in my own life, but in what I teach clients too, is really just taking responsibility for how we show up in life now, right? I mean, it goes very much to what she just said, which is remembering and understanding that you're no longer in the trauma, you're no longer in the situation, and doing a lot of breathing and doing all of these things, but also taking responsibility and writing out how I want to show up now, how I want to feel now, who I want to be now. And it does take a conscious effort every single day of doing things like I do a lot of sound healing and Reiki. I do a practice called quantum flow. So it works with the physical to basically rewire from the inside out all of the stories, all of the structures that, I mean, for me, it was 4 decades of really being plugged into that trauma. So every single day it requires the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual work to get that out of my system and show up every single day as the person who's no longer in that trauma.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, everybody. If you want to add or last word, who is going to be volunteer? I covered all of you. Do you want to add something, Nancy? Yes? Okay. No worries.
I think that one of the
Did you
things,
please? Yes.
if you can hear me, yeah. What, you know, if I were to leave final words, it is that quitters never win and winners never quit. Always.
I love it. Yes.
Always keep on
Quitters
trying.
never win.
And winners never quit. There is a hero inside of you, right? There's a hero just waiting to fly.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. All of you are so amazing. And that was really hopeful interview, and hopefully everybody could use it, and we could actually participate in this PTSD self-healing month. This is a month of hope. We're not going to say that PTSD is end of it, because all of us went through it. And all of us went through the recovery path, and we know that it's possible, even through the grief, even through the losing somebody, even through the violence, even through the bad relationship. There is a present time we live, and then this is a gift to us. We still have a lot of opportunity to discover, and we need to live. Thank you so much for everybody being here. I really enjoyed talking to you, all of you.